Good evening, everyone,
Good evening.
and welcome to the Arkansas Legislative Black Caucus's Town Hall Series. This is our second meeting of 7. It was originally scheduled to be 8, but we're down to 7. I'll just start by go according to the agenda. And if I could invite our illustrious Chancellor to come forth to deliver some welcome remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So happy to see all of you here tonight for this very special occasion. It is indeed a special occasion when we have the Arkansas Legislative Black Caucus in our midst. This is not the only time that they're here. We are grateful to have them here on campus from time to time, that they have come to share with us, to see about us, and at various times because they deeply care about this university and this community. At the same time, we are delighted to have them here on this evening to discuss the issues facing our state and to bring us up to date on a number of things that have occurred in this last legislative session. And we honestly just want to offer a word of thanks for their service to our state and to our local communities. And we appreciate all that they do on our behalf. Thank you.
And if I could just draw your attention, I know you all smell the chicken, so you know the food is here. But also in the back to your right, you'll see some handouts and as well as an agenda. So if you didn't get a chance to get one, and please also sign in so that we know who's here and that we can stay in touch with you. And I think that takes us right into talking about the purpose and what we're doing here. So I failed to introduce myself. My name is Vivian Flowers. I'm state representative for District 17, and we're right here smack dab in the middle of District 17. And I am one of the host members for the evening. And the way that we're sort of doing these is we're holding these town hall meetings so that we can connect with our constituents, provide information as a follow-up to the session, and be available to ask and answer questions as we move forward. And if I could call up who I call the quiet storm and my partner in crime, or in service, Representative Ken Ferguson, District 16.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to briefly just introduce the legislators who are here today. And I want to start to my right. Is Representative Charles Blake, who is the representative of District 36. He is the vice chair of the Arkansas Legislative Black Caucus, serves on the Aging Children and Youth Legislative and Military Affairs and Judiciary on the House side. Let me introduce State Representative Fred Allen to my left. Raise your hand, Representative Allen. Representative Allen serves District 30 out of Pulaski County, Little Rock. Representative Allen serves on public transportation as well as agriculture, forestry, economic development on the House side. Representative David Fielding from Magnolia. Raise your hand, Representative Fielding, District 5. Representative Fielding serves on city, county, and local, also on public transportation. He served in those particular committees ever since he's been in the legislature. He's a city, county, local man.
Consistent.
Senator Joyce Elliott. Senator Elliott represents District 31 of Little Rock, Pulaski County. Senator Elliott is co-chair of the Arkansas Legislative Council, chair of the Royal Penal and Correctional Institutions. She's vice chair of the Arkansas Legislative Council Personnel Committee, vice chair of Education, and chair of Insurance and Commerce. And many of our legislators serve on more committees than I am announcing here tonight, but I'm just picking out a few to give you an idea. You've already met the chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, Vivian Flowers, District 17, my partner in crime. Representative Frederick J. Love, District 29. This is Representative Love's fourth term. He Vice Chair of City County Local Affairs Committee. He also serves on the Arkansas Legislative Council. He serves on Public Health, Welfare, and the Labor Committee also. My esteemed friend and partner, Representative Milton Nix Jr., Reverend Milton Nix Jr., I like to say, District 15. Out of Marion, Arkansas, Representative Nix serves on the Judiciary Committee as well as Aging Children and Youth, Legislative and Military Affairs. The Dean, I call him the Dean, last but not least, Representative George McGill. Representative George McGill serves District 78 out of Fort Smith, Arkansas. Representative McGill serves on the Education Committee and also on City, County, and Local and Committee Affairs. Also with us tonight, Senator Trent Garner out of Jefferson County, District 27, who has graced our presence here this evening. Senator Garner, I believe, serves on the Senate State Agencies Committee and also Senate Judiciary Committee, as well as a number of other subcommittee positions. This is our, did I miss anybody? If not, thank you.
So that we can move forward and in keeping with the Lord's will, Representative Allen has reminded me that even though we'll eat later, we'll go ahead and start with a little bit of prayer. And if I could ask our chaplain, Representative Nix, go ahead and lead us.
Let us pray. Eternal Father, once again, we come giving thanks to you for allowing us another day. Thank you, Father, for this gracious community that accepting us tonight to be able to discuss in a manner of your will and desire of unity. Father, we just ask that you allow this information to come out, Father, that we can receive and take back to our homes and be helped by what has already transpired in the legislature. But tonight, Father, we just thank you once again for this day. We ask you, Lord, also to bless this food that we're about to receive, Father. We ask that you bless the hands that prepared it, bless it as we receive it for our body. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Before we get started with panelists' remarks and panel discussion, we would also like to make a couple of special introductions and ask for them to make some remarks. And the first person that I'm going to introduce, and both of these gentlemen are with the leadership of the NAACP, and we thought it appropriate since Pine Bluff has one of the largest, has the largest chapter in the state, and then also the president of the state conference. Before we do, I also wanted to recognize Senator Flowers. And Senator Flowers, if you might be available to participate in the panel discussion. Okay. Chief Ivan Whitfield, he is our recently elected president of the Pine Bluff branch of the NAACP, and he is also our police chief. Who would have ever thought those two roles would collide, but they have collided in Pine Bluff, and they have collided well. So we would like to introduce you and also ask you to make a couple of minutes of remarks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much, Representative Flowers. My name is Ivan Whitfield, and I serve as the president of the local Naacp branch. Let it be known that we have declared to be the biggest, the baddest, and the boldest on either side of the Mississippi River, located here in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I stand to say to all of our distinguished guests, you are welcome to our city. We are so proud that you all came here tonight to discuss the plan, the decisions, the things that need to be made for to make it better in our state. And that's a lot on your shoulders. So we are very proud that you used this city as a part of your tour. And we will never forget that you took time out to do it. So we're thankful for that. And on behalf of the branch here, we want to let you know you're welcome. Let me do a quick remark. I said this, I've been a police officer for 34 years. I want y'all to catch the way that I say it. Because I said it some years ago when I went to the governor's mansion and they invited black police chiefs to the governor's mansion. I said at that time I had been a policeman 26, 27 years, but now I got 34 years in as a police officer. I got 55 years in as being a black male walking on this earth. There's something that I want to say to you in my remarks, which is for you to ponder, maybe not tonight, but on your way back home. It is a need of this community and other communities across this state for somebody at this table to declare to your other counterparts, we must tell the difference, define the difference between abuse and discipline. If we never do that, my brothers and sisters, if we don't declare the difference between abuse and discipline, the police chief, the assistant chief, and all the officers will always stay busy. The prison will grow larger population. A man needs to be able to handle his household in a disciplinary form, not abusive form. So my remarks to you, to help our community, is somebody please declare and define that difference. And I believe the city of Pine Bluff and the state of Arkansas will put you down in history forever. I'm Ivan Whitfield, president of the NAACP, and I approve this message.
Another one of our members walked in. Representative Reginald Murdoch.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
And so Mr. Rizal Aaron was recently elected, and before he comes and makes his some opening remarks for us, I wanted to point out something, and part of what we're here to do is talk to you about what this process is, what the political process is. And I'm not talking about partisan politics, I'm talking about politics that determines resources and access and advocacy. The role that organizations like the NAACP, the role that they play is so important, not just in reaction to things that happen that we see in the media, but also with the proactive kinds of things that take place. Representative Ferguson and I just met with the police chief not long ago as a follow-up to one of these meetings we had last year about community policing and the relationship between the police and the community and some of the things that we've seen play out in the past. And I don't know if people know, Pine Bluff is in the process of implementing body cams. And those and other policies are some of the things that we're working with our local municipality on, because not everything requires a a state legislative solution. And Rizal Aaron, during the legislative process and the bill that separated the holiday between Dr. Martin Luther King and General Lee, he was a very compelling person who delivered remarks at the Senate, it was the Senate Committee, House Education Committee meeting. So much so that people were talking about it the next day, and I believe he changed minds and hearts. So that is really, really important, not just in our specific roles, but when we work together, it makes a difference. So with that, Mr. Aaron, please come to the mic.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
Again, I'm Rizal Aaron, President of the Arkansas State Conference of the Naacp, to President Ivan Whitfield, my good friend and chief. Glad to see and know the work that you're doing here in Pine Bluff. And Pine Bluff is, in fact, our largest chapter in the state. I just want to let you know this, that the Arkansas NAACP, since October, since I've taken office, has almost tripled in membership. Not just in individual membership, but also in chapters, in adult chapters, and also college chapters. As a matter of fact, UAPB is a proud chapter of the NAACP. And so I want to encourage you, first of all, to join your local chapter or branch of the NAACP. NAACP is not about black folks. It's about civil rights and it's about human rights. And I get calls from all kinds of people from all over the state, and no call goes unanswered. But in regards to the occasion here tonight, I want to thank the black legislators for being here tonight. This is the first time I believe I've ever seen this done in the state of Arkansas, where we have a traveling crew of legislators that are taking their own time to come out and to talk to us in our communities about the things that are important to us. And we ought to be proud of them for them taking this position. Again, I know many of them are my friends. The ones that are not are going to get to be my friends. It's not always sure that people are your friends just because you have something in common, like we're all black. So with that being said, I'm looking forward to the forum tonight, and I'm looking forward to attending some more forums as they travel the state. So thank you for these few words, and join your NAACP. Thank you.
So as you see, we have a really great turnout of members who are here, and Representative Ferguson and I are going to try to moderate this thing, but could we ask Representatives Ferguson and Murdoch to come on up, and from Representative Murdoch, you can send us. Sorry? And Senator Flowers, you're fine? Okay. So we want to make sure that we allow enough time for audience question and answer, but we certainly wanted to open up and ask for this panel of legislators to talk about one high and one low, one legislative high and one legislative low. And we can start on this end, Senator Elliott. And I'll say this, when I talk about a high and a low, it could be about policy, it could be about a particular measure that was achieved, a particular measure that was defeated, but something that is specific to our district that I think people need to know that maybe they don't.
All right, so thinking quickly. One of the things that always kind of gets me, and I'm so sorry to have to say this, there were, from my perspective and what affects the African American community, there were way too many lows, and it makes it hard to choose one. I just said that to you straight ahead because I think that is the case. And the low, I guess I have to start with because I think it's so much a part of who we are as a democracy and who we are as Americans. The continued march toward barriers to voting. We had two issues this time regarding voter ID, and everybody thinks voter ID is a non-issue until you talk to people for whom it really is an issue. And the other thing about that is, I always thought about legislation in terms of you're fixing some problem. I always want somebody to me, what problem are you fixing? Or what convincing information do you have to show me that there is a problem on the horizon? And that's the test I gave, for example, to voter ID. And there just aren't the examples there for this to be merited. And people will oftentimes say things like, well, you have to use an ID to get on the plane. Getting on the plane is not a civil rights to buy. Well, you have to use a voter ID to buy that single malt scotch you want, but you don't have a right to buy scotch. That's not a right in the Constitution. So it's really important to separate rights from privileges. Voting is not a privilege, it's a right, and that's the thing that gets me stirred up so much about putting a barrier between people's right to vote as opposed to their privilege to get on Delta Airlines. Those things are different. But what you need to know legislatively, what I consider the law, we referred, you might think of it, something for you to vote on, to put into the Constitution that we will have voter ID, for it to be in the Constitution. And I find that very problematic. And just in case that does not pass, we also passed a bill, as a backup, I guess, to make sure that we put up these voter ID barriers, as I will call them. I think that's just a problem because I look at the faces here. I think back to my own family members who fought so hard, who had always faced barriers, and here we are again moving swiftly back into the bad old days without anything back up. And a high, and there were some highs as well, but I'll just talk about highs as regarding education, just because that's the committee I sit on, and I think that is, I'll just go there, other committees. But I do think we had some very good highs regarding kids' ability to be kids and put in a position to be able to learn. And one of the major bills we passed was one where you can no longer suspend kids from school, out of school suspension, unless they are a demonstrated danger to themselves or to others. You can't suspend them from school K through 5 or expel them. And you might think, well, we weren't doing that. Well, yeah, we were doing it, and we are doing it right now, but we won't be doing it going forward. I think that was a very high point. It doesn't sound like maybe such a big thing to people until you think about if we can't be smarter, if we can't outsmart K through 5 kids or keep their little butts in school, something is wrong with us. There's a reason we got to be the adults, I always say. And the other thing, we can take this kind of thing and make a direct line to prison. And we're going to start putting them out of school in K through 5. And then turn around and start saying to those same kids, if you can't read on grade level by grade 3, we're going to start having prison beds because of that. We are building their way to prison when we do things like this. So I think that was a big deal. There's some other things, but since I got to go first, George, maybe I'm a little bit too long, but whatever.
So if we can switch back and forth, so we'll do Representative Charles Blake next.
Thank you, Representative Flowers. I'm going to start with a high. I always like to start on a high note. One of the things that I think is one of the highest notes of our session that's not talked about a lot is one of our colleagues, Representative John Walker, passed a bill called the HOPE Act, which basically allows the state to opt out of the federal law that mandated that if you were put in prison or was convicted of a drug felony, you could not get state benefits, or you could not get food stamps.
SNAP.
So SNAP program. So that law the state has now the state has chosen to not follow that law anymore, to opt out, and I think that's going to benefit a lot of families, a lot of children, and a lot of mothers. So that's something that was a very proud moment. As Senator Elliott said, there was a lot of low points, but one that I think affects this city and as well as mine is the guns on campus law that actually did the opposite. It allowed what the law was now is it allowed campuses. Originally, the law it's so much happened throughout the session. But now what it is if you can apply for an advanced carry license and be able to carry your handgun on state campuses. And I think that's a step too far. All campuses before had a choice to opt in or opt out of this program, and 100% of the campuses opted out. So now we're allowing those handguns with a new advanced carry. So that was a low point of session and of one of many. So.
Representative McGill?
Thank you, President Flowers. To me, when we started talking about anything that deals with voter suppression, it gives me heartburn. My first session, when they put voter ID in, it's the only time that I felt sick. Because I could always see the senior citizens in my community. Many of them don't drive, don't get out to the home, but they fought for the right to vote. And I could see them not being able to vote because they didn't have an ID. So, anytime I see legislation that deals with voter suppression, it troubles me. On the good side of all of this, I chaired the Committee on Aging Children, Youth, and Military Affairs Committee, our last session, and many of the thoughts and ideas that originated in that session came to light this session. And with the military, we now have the military, retired military, their retirement pay is now tax exempt. So we no longer tax that military pay. Also, in Fort Smith, we have a 188th Air Wing. Most of you are familiar with drone aircraft. Those men and women fly drone aircrafts out of that air base. And we passed legislation that would allow the young men and women that join the Air National Guard or any other National Guard unit, they get free education. And so we felt that was important in order to staff many of these positions and maintain young people and encourage them to take on some military responsibility. We did pass that legislation.
Representative Love?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, good afternoon or good evening. So in trying to capture a reflection of the session, and I'm going to talk both from a negative perspective because depending on what committee you sit in, you're going to see a lot of different things. And in sitting on the Public Health Committee, you look at a lot of labor issues, you look at a lot of public health issues. And so from a perspective of public health, I think when we, especially this was in the special session, when we opted to take more than 60,000 people off of the rolls of health care on the Affordable Care Act, Arkansas Works, whatever you would like to call it. It's Affordable Care Act. I thought that was a low point because the state of Arkansas had the resources. We have the resources to actually take care of the persons that are our constituents. And when we did not do that, when we abdicated the responsibility that we had to provide health care to people, you're talking about a right? Being a healthy individual, having health care, I don't think is a right. I think it's just something that the state should do. So when we did that, I think that was maybe the lowest part of the session, and it was a lot of lows. But being on the Public Health Committee, you see a lot of things. It seemed, and I think I was on the panel with Senator Elliott earlier, a couple of weeks ago. It seemed like it was an assault on the poor, this legislative session. And I know that, we did do a lot of positive things, but it was an assault on the working class, it was an assault on the poor. But also from a negative perspective, we also defeated a lot of bad legislation. there was some legislation in which you all did not hear about because we defeated it in committee. One such piece of legislation is called the Healthcare Conscious Act. And some of these pieces of legislation are discriminatory in practice. And I always tell people you have to be mindful of discriminating against anyone. You know, I don't care if you consider, when you talk about discriminatory legislation, people want to say, well, it is a religious, LGBT community, and they want to talk about, their religious right to do something or to deny something. And so I think we must be very careful when we begin to try to enact legislation that covers that. But we defeated a lot of legislation that had the bathroom bills, Healthcare Conscious Act. When we defeated that legislation, that was a high point. And so I think, Madam Chair, that's where I would
Thank you.
in my discussion.
And one of the things that I'd like to point out, in addition to the agenda that's back there, there's a fact sheet about Arkansas Works. That's something, obviously, that was in the paper and something that a lot of people have concerns about, and what may or may not happen on the federal level to Medicaid expansion or Medicaid in general. But I think that, so when Representative Love talks about what we got passed and what we defeated, clearly in the House there are 12 of us. In the Senate there are 3 of us. I mean, even if you look at it from a partisan perspective, I'm a Democrat. All of us up here are Democrats. We're here, though, as nonpartisan, as a nonpartisan caucus. But even when you look at it from that perspective, people think that often these issues fall along party lines. There are 24 Democrats in the House. A bill has to get 51 votes to pass out. So when you look at the point that Representative Love just made, when he talks about we defeated bad bills or we got bills passed, clearly bills got passed by Democrats and Republicans. Bills got defeated by Democrats and Republicans. And oftentimes when those measures are controversial and they are defeated or they are passed, it's because of you. It's because you call your legislators, you pick up the phone and you tell them what's important, particularly if folks are on the fence, particularly if it's controversial, or if you don't really know what to do. And before we move to the next person along the panel, one such bill for me was the wine bill. I don't know if you all heard about that, the Walmart wine bill. There was more controversy and heat in that room over that bill, I think, than just about anything that I have ever experienced, which was surprising to me, but then, in a way, not so much, because you're talking about money and business and commerce. And so I want you to know that when those things happen, and that's why we're here, to not only talk about what happened, but as we move forward, reminding you that this process is something that we are engaged in, but it's also a process for you to engage in, and one that you as citizens can and do impact. So Representative Allen, with that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank each and every one of you all for being here tonight. And each time that we wake up in the morning and benefits of a day like this, that's truly a gift from God, and I'm eternally grateful for that. I just want to say a couple of things. I think one of the lows for me was after I won and I came back to the General Assembly, the face of the General Assembly had changed. And what that did, it forced us as African Americans to have to work together. And for the first time, we really had to work together as a team. But there were some things that we all did not agree upon, but for the most part, we agreed upon a lot of things, and we were able to get a lot of things accomplished. Now, many of you may not know this, but healthcare is very close and near and dear to my heart. I just think that everybody should have healthcare. And I know people that are spending thousands and thousands of dollars on medical bills because they don't have health care. And I did have health care, and I ended up spending over $300,000 of my personal money just to be here. And if I had to do it over, I would do it in the same manner. But what about those people that don't have the resources, and those people that don't have the resources and the health care to fight catastrophic diseases? So they die or they suffer. So I am a strong proponent of health care. I guess one of the low moments is, for me, was wanting to get things done and you couldn't get things done. So that was a very low moment for me, but a high moment for me was going back and revamping the colorectal cancer task force. As you know, in the state of Arkansas, we have 600 deaths every year, 1,500 new cases, and those that are eligible for screening don't get screened. So the governor's goal was by the year of 2018, 80% of people that was eligible for screening should get screened. And that's a tall order. But it's amazing how we can push that on one side, but then on the other side, we don't have the insurance. They're cutting people off of insurance, they're cutting benefits, so people can't afford to go to the doctor. So I don't know where we're headed with this. And education is so important to me also. And one of the things I was able to do with the help of my colleagues was to pass a bill that will allow kids or students to take the ACT test either in the 10th grade or 11th grade, and the state would pay for it one time, 10th grade or 11th grade. Just 2 weeks ago, at one of the other college campuses in Little Rock, we had 150 kids to come to Little Rock on a school bus and from around the state of Arkansas just to take up and participate in the ACT boot camp. And that's amazing that they would do that. So I'll end by saying it's important that we continue to fight for our kids. It's important that we fight for health care. And anything that's dealing with voter suppression, anything like voter ID, is something that we should hang our heads in shame of, because it's a sin to take away a person's right to vote. It's a sin also to take away their right to read. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Allen. Representative Fielding.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is David Fielding. You know, when you look at highs or low, I don't really classify none of the things we did as a high and low. You know, a couple of things that I did that I thought it was important was I did, and could never get them out of committee, and that was the bill dealing with child support. You know, right now, if a person is incarcerated and is charged with child support, that child support will still continue while that person is incarcerated. So when they get out, then they got to go back and back pay all that money that way was not able to work, it was being charged with. So that was another one. The other one, I think Senator Elliott touched on a bit, and that was done with the voter ID. Every year, we put 3 initiated acts that we passed, 3 initiated acts on the ballot. But you know, and I can say that I never really talk about those initiated acts when I go out and campaign and talk. And we go to the poll, and a lot of times we get there, we don't know whether we're going to vote yes, or vote no, or vote for or against. One that I have a big problem with is we did one that's called tort reform. We're dealing with punitive damage. And we put a price on a person's life of $500,000. That I have a real problem with, because I don't know how can you set, how do you set a value on a child's life or any person? How do you set a value on a life? You know, if you went to court and the judge thought that that fine was too high, you know, they had some discretion. But I just don't see how you could put a price on a person's life, and you know, those acts, the vote ID and those tort reform acts, we need to talk about it as we go through this election year. Thank you, Madam Chair. You want me to keep on talking? I'll keep on talking? Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Good evening. It's good to be here. My name is Reginald Murdoch. I represent District 48, which is all of Lee County and parts of St. Francis and Monroe counties, way over in the Delta. So it's great to be in Pine Bluff this evening. As far as legislation go, let me start with some of the things that was most concerning to me, and with politics being pretty local, and as it affects the people that I represent, we have a small technical school over in the Delta in Fort City by the name of Crawley's Ridge Technical Institute. And that school serves a lot of African Americans and others, but a lot of African Americans that do choose not to go the college route. They want to go learn a trade, skill, and go to work and be wage earners and not be dependent upon systems. And they may not choose the other route. And that's been very, very effective in our area, where there was a charge to change that and consolidate that with the local college, East Arkansas Community College, which is a great school, and we're proud of the community college, but we're proud of them independent from the Crawley's Ridge. So that was a very tense legislation, and that did finally pass in some form. But I do think that by us coming together and maybe many of you in the room that participated in that debate, that we were able to emphasize the uniqueness and the genuineness of that form of delivery of education that was very effective for constituents in that area and in other areas where you have unique situations and unique opportunities, but people were taking advantage of those. And it was very disheartening that under the guise, in my opinion, of politics, that we ran into what we ran into. But by virtue of the numbers, you've heard many of my colleagues talk about the things that we cannot somehow stop now because of the world we live in. Another one that I deal with that was still very much concern to me is the gun legislation that I think Representative Love maybe Representative Blake, one of them mentioned that the gun legislation. I won't rehash that, but I just think, well, we decided to put guns, and the reason that, and again, the lead sponsor on that, Representative Charlie Collins, is a guy that I respect, but I just vehemently disagree with his precept and his thinking on what this would do to help us. You know, all of the law enforcement people, the experts in the area, they came and they spoke, and those that protect us, let me say that. The NRA, obviously, the NRA was in favor of all the guns in the world. That you know, we know that. But you know, it's very disheartening to me that happened in the way it happened. He's been trying since we've been here, and for the most part, every session we've been able to fight it off, and the numbers are so overwhelming now that they were able to get it through this time. But we'll continue to fight a faith for the right reasons. Many of the legislators that you see here stood up and fought a good fight in that area, and we'll continue to do it in our communities as we try to make good decisions. Though it's a law, it's not anything that we must do. We can still have self-control and make good decisions individually in our communities and our homes as we lead them so that we may be more safe. Real quick, my high point is I get a chance to talk about class personified. We had a situation on the House end where there was a hot debate dealing with the Martin Luther King legislation, and you had both sides that was very much, you know, expressing themselves, if you will, for what they believed in. And it was obviously a tense situation politically and otherwise. Lots of emotion was in the room. Well, our good friend, you probably heard about it, but now you may have seen the YouTube, I don't know. But Representative George McGill, he went to the well and he calmed the well. He calmed the body. He calmed the room. He did a wonderful job he didn't say nothing that you got to go find a dictionary to understand. He said a lot of simple, good stuff, which I have the privilege of sitting beside him every day during when we're in session, so I get it all the time for free. But the whole body got an opportunity that day to enjoy what I enjoy every day of the session, when I'm able to sit there and listen to him whisper in my ear and talk to me about the things that he sees in his view of life. And that was the best moment in the session when he did that, because of what he represented to everybody. I don't care who you were, black, white, Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Independent. Representative McGill was able to reach everybody that day, and that was the high point of the session for me. Thank you.
Representative Nix.
I should have said Major.
I represent the next from Clinton County, represent District 50. My low point probably is here tonight, the last one to speak.
He's preaching. He's preaching. Go ahead.
Everything I put on my list to talk about, somebody talked about it. But it was an interesting session, and there are some low points, and they've already been made. And I think, for what I'm concerned, anytime I sponsor a bill or get on a bill with someone and I'm for that bill and it's defeated, it's a low point for me. So I like for every bill that I present or on with that it would pass, but there's a lot of things. There's over 2,000 bills introduced today during the session, and there's no way that every bill is going to pass and you're going to like it. But we have to look at these things, and when they fall, we've got to come back and we've got to try to make it better. One of the main things that I've served, and I can attest to the chiefs, I served for over 30 years in law enforcement, retired from the Arkansas State Police, so I served on the Judiciary Committee, and so there's a lot of laws and things that come to that we look at, and that affects different ones. I think probably the low point, or one of the low points that we look at is the campus gun law. I'm a proponent of guns. I believe in security. I believe you got to have it. But also, I think the problem with this particular bill was that on the university campus and all, is it was a good bill in 14. They taken the authority away from the school and its administrations to make the decision whether or not they allow this on their campus. So that was probably one of the low points, and as Medicare, some of the things that was done I see to kind of hinder the poor or people from being able to sustain their Medicaid that they have, the quality of care that they have, the Patriot Act and all that. So there's a lot of low points. I think there's many high points too. There's a lot of things that happened in the legislature this year. I was telling somebody one day that, we spent, I think I heard it mentioned here, we spent, and not only just the Black Caucus and the Democrats or the Republicans, we spent the majority of our time this session on plan defense. I mean, you didn't have time to really push a lot of hard on different legislation because he was trying to fight off things that was coming that didn't make sense and wouldn't benefit the people of this state, the majority of the people of the state. So that was one thing. But just a real quick, one of the high points that they didn't mention. Yeah, I got it here.
We missed it.
I think Fielding saw my notes and he still didn't pick it up.
I don't want to take it from you.
Okay, that's what being on judiciary, there was a bill that came through judiciary, and I thought it was really important. It was a bill that taken the death penalty off the table for juveniles, for people under 18, or I believe it's 18, but for juveniles can no longer be found guilty and be penalized with the death penalty. And some people say, well, you know, it depends on the crime. Yeah, it might. Life in prison, they can still get life in prison, but they won't be able to get the death penalty as a result of their crime. And there were some people who said, wait a minute, they did it. That's true. But when we had some professional people that come in and talked about it, and I know this from my children, they're really not mature until they get over 20, 24, I believe, is the age. Yeah. Now, it's not saying that they won't spend the rest of their life. There's some things that they have, some criteria they have to meet in order, because I think the first appearance for parole is after about 30 years. So if you're a 12 or 13-year-old child and you got the death penalty, there's definitely no way that you're going to ever be any good to society because you're going to be locked up. But there should be an opportunity for a person to be reformed. We listened to many people that were there, some juveniles that had the death penalty, and they got it reversed, and they made great tribute to society. So that was one of the high points, is to take the death penalty off of juvenile being charged and convicted and given the death sentence. So that was one of the things, and there was many more, but I'll yield.
Okay, and Senator Flowers?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, for me, I didn't think it was a very good session at all. I think, in my mind, it was one of the worst I've ever experienced. And the high point, it was a high point for me though. I represent 6 counties in southeast Arkansas, northern half of Jefferson County. The other senator that represents the southern part of Jefferson County, he's here, Senator Trent Garner. And, the high point was having pages from all 6 of my counties come and experience the legislative process. So that was good. They all enjoyed it. Most of them were 9th, 8th, and I think I had some 10th graders. But they came from small areas, some from over in Phillips County. I had some first time from over in Phillips County, Lexa Barton, and over in Arkansas County, Gillette, and I had some from down in Dumas, and I had 6 from Jefferson County, representing all of the school districts in this county. So that was great. They enjoyed it, and I certainly enjoyed taking them around the Capitol campus, having lunch over in Capitol Hill, allowing them to meet and get information from lobbyists, and even Tony Washington is in here. He's lobbying for Pulaski Heights or Community College, and he spoke to them. They got a good eye-open view of what we do up there. The low points for me, ever since I guess they talked about the gun legislation, that was very disturbing to me. And you know, when you're with individuals, and I thought my colleagues, for the most part, with all due respect to Senator Garner, really don't understand people in parts of this state, and a lot of the constituents I represent, and even constituents in their parts of the state. Because I got, of course, a lot of people have mentioned to me about the video that went viral, but you know, it showed a lot of passion from me, and I feel it to this day. And I have been emotionally affected by guns, and having family members that have gone to war, and sister killed at college. Those things, I don't think you can really appreciate until you've been there and you've experienced that. And since I've been back here in Arkansas, right here in Pine Bluff, going to a funeral home and seeing young kids, same age I was when I lost my sister to gun violence on a college campus, show extreme shock and trauma. You know, you just simply need to go out to Brown's funeral home one day when somebody has been shot down, gunned down here, and see how these young people react. And that's something I don't take lightly, because you can never really get over that. I never have gotten over it, but I guess it was good for me to have to go through it, because it allowed me to release some emotions that were just latent. And so that was not a good experience at all. And to think that, you know, you gotta have a gun everywhere you go. I mean, you know, who does that? But I was certainly touched by so many veterans that contacted me since that happened to express their support and their feeling that was the right thing to say at the right time. You know, everybody doesn't know how to use a gun. And since the session, we've seen over in Sheridan and Grant County, a young man who was visiting a friend who had his daughter there and had a gun. He was showing him the gun and didn't know that it was loaded, and went off and killed his daughter. He had a 4-year-old over in Phillips County a week or so ago that killed an adult. So, I mean, it's just, you don't do that willy-nilly. I've never thought about holding a gun just willy-nilly. Everybody doesn't need it. That doesn't mean I'm against the Second Amendment. And, but you have to have an appreciation of what that does, what it is. Then the other things that struck me were the bills that affected middle income, low income, poor people. And we did so much to take away from the little resources that they have. You know, you talk about the military retirees exemption for their retirement pay. Well, it's on the backs of the unemployed. A little bit of their unemployment insurance is going to be taxed to pay for that. The military retired veterans, military retirees that I know, they don't support it. They don't. And I'm not against doing something to show my support for retired military, but not at the expense of somebody that is unemployed. I mean, it's just not logical. Then we did things that would help or keep more money in the pocket of those that have. We had a bill that we debated back and forth in public health that dealt with servicing elevators. Now, I think they said it's about maybe 500 elevators in the state of Arkansas. It's not that many elevators. And who do you think owns elevators? You'd think that they would be able to pay for inspection of their elevators. But we dropped that down. I think they wanted like $1,000 for private contractors to be able to come out and inspect and certify elevators. I think that finally came down to maybe $200, maybe $300. It was something, $350. And I thought to myself, you know, and I asked the committee, you know, well, we don't have that much concern about a poor person, so why are we concerned about somebody that's got an elevator that's probably got a lot of poor people coming up on the elevator to give them some money, but you're not going to demand that they pay to inspect an elevator. I mean, then we had a bill in Insurance and Commerce that even our Supreme Court had ruled that that didn't make sense, but some kind of way the legislature decided it made sense. So we're now gonna depreciate labor in your insurance contract. So, you know, you can see maybe materials being depreciated, like your shingles if your roof is damaged or something, but depreciate labor? How do you do that? Well, I guess we'll figure it out, but, you know, we gotta be real watchful. I think the best thing I can do as a legislator at this point is try to inform the people I represent of what to look for in terms of the laws that we passed or how to navigate in this state and have a quality of life when, you know, they're, you know, really fighting hard just to put food on their table and gas in their cars if they have a car.
Person Ferguson?
Well, I think everybody has almost said everything to be said. In terms of all the highs and the lows, we talked about vote ID, guns on campus, and rolling back Medicaid expansion, and those kinds of things. But we can talk a little bit about some things that your legislators can do besides voting on particular laws or in a committee meeting. It's called constituent services. How many of you out there have ever contacted your state representative or your state senator about a constituent problem? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because I see 4 people who contacted me about a particular constituent problem. That's one thing that we can do. It doesn't necessarily require us passing a law. During the session, well, since I've been in the legislature, I've helped a number of people who had disability problems. I've helped a number of people who had some issues actually with the federal government that our House Constituent Service Office has helped guide them in the right direction of their flood problems with the FEMA, young fireman who had some problems with his retirement with the LAFTI, the Law Enforcement Police Fireman Pension Fund. Young mothers who had problems with Medicaid, with DHS, who were kicked off incidentally for some sort of technical error. So I would encourage all of you to use your legislators. We have a very good constituent service office in the House, and the Senate also has a good constituent service office. And those analysts and those individuals there do a fantastic job in not only helping you as citizens navigate your way through the system in state government, but certainly in our House Constituent Service Office, I've helped a number of people sort of navigate their way through the system, even in a federal way. So I would just say that those are some things that we can do as legislators. Please give us a call. We may not be able to help you all the time. But sometimes you just never know unless you try, unless you give us a call.
Thank you very much for raising that point, and if I could borrow this from Representative Murdoch for a second. We do have some directories in the back, and we encourage you to take some, not only for yourself, but to give out to other people. It has our contact information, it has information on how to access other information online about bills, but in terms of contacting us, this is how you do it. And you can also find out by electronically or by calling the Secretary of State's office or your county clerk's office who your representative is. A lot of times people don't know. And so we just encourage you to use this. Take some in the back. Also, what we provided in the back is just a summary, which also has our profiles. This is just a legislative Black Caucus member legislation and information. So we encourage you to take this as well, and this will give you an idea of what kinds of bills that we have filed. The ones that actually passed and became law are highlighted. So just take a look at this. And a lot of times some of the best legislation that we have the privilege of bringing forward is legislation that we work on with our constituents. With that said, I'll just give a couple of thoughts. High point, for me, is a bill that my name wasn't on, and several of us worked on, And, no, I'm sorry, that was another bill. This bill, several of us actually co-sponsored, but we weren't the lead sponsor. And it was a bill that amends the law regarding minority business. It is, House Bill 2218, and the original law was actually sponsored by Senator Elliott, I believe back in 2003. We came back to not only make it stronger administratively, but we also made it stronger by adding women. We gave some percentages so that minority business owners would not be diluted in that process. We brought disabled veterans over under the banner of AEDC and the minority, I think you like that, division. And then we also were able to amend the bill toward the end and include an incentive. So state agencies have a certain threshold where they can do small business contracts before they have to go to a more comprehensive, laborious process. And what the incentive does is for any of the women-owned, minority, and disabled veteran businesses that are registered with the state, as long as you are registered with the state, then that threshold of what that small business contract is doubled. So what it does is incentivize state agencies to do business with registered businesses. And it was a major feat, and it's something that was passed when we are a super minority as minority representatives in the House and Senate, and super minority as Democrats. We had Republican legislators who carried this bill, and I thought that that was a big high. And it took some talking and working some stuff out and convincing and explaining, but it worked, and so we were very happy about that. The other, I think the low, and Representative Blake had to head out today, is his mother's birthday, and he was here with us, so I think that speaks to his commitment, but he did have to leave. Representative Blake carried some legislation around the death penalty. I was making sure that wasn't me. Around the death penalty, and I carried a couple of bills, and all of them failed. That was a low point, and then the lower point for me was the state of Arkansas being in the limelight for carrying out the number of executions we did. And I bring that up because we sent those bills to interim study, and part of a process, I think, for dealing with controversial issues like that is education, is continuing to bring that issue before, and I'll punctuate my remarks about legislation with this. Representative Rebecca Petty and I came in together. She actually ran for office because her daughter was murdered and raped by a family member who was on the search with the family, and they did not know. She is a huge victims' rights advocate, and you heard Representative Milton Hicks talk earlier about juveniles who now are the life in prison is not imposed on those juveniles. Last session, that bill was proposed by Greg Letting, and it failed miserably, and she went up and basically killed it with passion. But guess who brought that bill forward and it got passed this session? Rebecca Petty. Because in that time, Greg Letting continued to work on the issue. He actually connected her with another mother who lost her child who was working for that legislation. So I say that to say that it was a really, really tough session. I've only had two, so me saying it was the worst one doesn't mean a whole lot, because both of them were challenging. But we can still get things done, and the folks who are here in front of you do get things done. And so with that, I would like to take this moment before we go to Q&A to recognize Nathaniel Todd, who is the director of our Arkansas Department of Veterans Affairs. And if you could just stand up so people can see. And he's also a resident of Pineville.
Cool.
And I could ask Senator Trent Garner if you have some remarks, and you can talk about high, low, or whatever you'd like to share with us.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to come out here today. It's an honor to sit by my good friend, Senator Elliott. Obviously, the reason I came out and was so excited when I heard about this invite is this is an opportunity for me to come out and meet and see groups of people that I typically don't get to interact with on a day-to-day basis. When you run for election, it's Republican, Democrat, Green Party, Libertarian, and that matters. And that we have different beliefs and ideas that go toward that election. But I've always said this, and I truly mean it. Once I was elected, the only title I care about is Arkansas. And as long as you are that, and you are in my district or outside of my district, specifically my district pertains like constituent services, I want to help you. I want to hear your ideas. I want to hear what you have to do and what you want to say to me. We might not agree. We might have different ideas how to reach that, but I always want to make sure. So this gave me an opportunity for being in my district to be here to come and meet people, to hear them yell at me if you want to, or you be upset with me, that's fine, that's part of the job, but to be here. The high points, Representative McGill talked about it. I'm a veteran, served 2 tours in Afghanistan with the Special Forces Green Beret team, and was the lead people on trying to get that military retirement tax exemption. Every state around us had this exemption already on the books, and it allows us to be competitive with it. Also, we got through a $50 million tax cut for the lowest income in Arkansas, effectively putting their income tax rate at 0. I know some of my colleagues on the panel prefer maybe an earned income tax credit or a different kind of, I see, yes ma'am. But that was a good first step in my opinion, and I'm sure that issue will come up again. Low point, this is an issue that we have to address in the state, is have to do with infrastructure, specifically highways. There was many different ideas that came up, but the lead one was to increase taxes through an initiative to the people of Arkansas for highways. And while I personally disagree with that and voted against it in the Senate, I do understand that here, specifically in South Arkansas and across the state, we have to address highways. And anytime you kind of start talking about revenue, Senator Elliott wants to punch you because that takes it from higher ed or lower, or excuse me, education and other things. But we have to address it. While I simply don't agree with raising our taxes, I think there is a solution out there and we have to address it. And that's why I wish that as we move forward, as both Senate and House colleagues, we have to address this moving forward. So thank you for this opportunity. I will definitely step off and hear these experts. I'm learning more than anybody else in here, I think. So thank y'all so much.
Okay, oh.
You need your microphone.
Okay. So now, the most important voices, yours. And actually, we have a Q&A mic right there. And so I would like to open the floor, and anyone who has a question or a comment, please stand up.
I've got 2 issues I'd like to hear some input. One is, with the passing of the marijuana laws, will there be a push, or is it necessary to push to decriminalize marijuana for an ounce or less like they have in other states? That's one thing. Secondly, in regards to child support, it's not often talked about, but what's your position on providing defense attorneys to non-custodial parents during the process of child support? For example, the custodial parent is represented automatically by a child support office. The non-custodial parent has to pay for representation, with the exception that if they violate the child support order, they can be criminally prosecuted, and they receive a defense attorney or public defender after they are arrested and getting ready to go to jail. And so what I'm asking is should we be looking at providing defense attorneys to non-custodial parents just as we are the custodial parents before they get to the point of the criminalization part? Thank you.
If I could get Representative Murdoch and then maybe Senator Garner just to get some different chamber, different side of the aisle perspectives about the medical marijuana question. And then look, it was a price to pay when you sit up here. And then maybe if I could get Senator Flowers to answer the question about the child support. So we can start with you, Representative Murdoch.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for the question. I just need you to repeat the marijuana question again for me.
Other states have reduced or decriminalized marijuana of an ounce or less that have passed marijuana laws, medication, or recreational use. So should Arkansas be looking at reducing, or excuse me, decriminalizing an ounce or less of marijuana? For example, if I get pulled over and I get an ounce of weed on me, should I be arrested for it, or should it be decriminalized like in other areas? The reason I'm asking this question is because not everyone that it has medical marijuana permit is going to be carrying that permit, although they should be, just like when we talk about prescription drugs. A lot of people take prescription medication, but if they're only going to have one dose while they're out, they have that little green container thing and they take it out. But the reality is that if they get caught with that by a police officer and it's not in a container with your name on it, a regular prescription, that they can and have been charged with it. So I'm asking, should the legislature be looking at decriminalizing marijuana for an ounce or less?
That's why constituents are important to this process that we're in. I mean, what you bring up is a point that I have not heard discussed in the many conversations that we've been dealing with medical marijuana. But we've been dealing with, just as you know, trying to get this thing up and running in the state of Arkansas. But there are several derivatives of this law as we move forward that's going to need attention, as you mentioned. So to this point, I know of none of that has been delved into, but I do think that that's an idea that needs to be explored as we look at how we're going to implement and safely implement this law. Now, obviously, the thing that we got to keep in mind is that the people asked for this, the legislature and the governor's office. This is not what we asked for, per se. So some of the things that you're talking about have not even been addressed because of where we are in the infancy of this process. I do think that's a part of the evolution that has to be addressed and has to happen. I appreciate you bringing that forward. And the honest answer is I think it's something that needs to be looked at as a matter of going forward, something we need to look at. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I'm a Republican, many of my colleagues are Republican, and when we had to deal with medical marijuana, it was largely on the Senate side, I can't speak as much for the House side, but people who didn't agree with the law and voted against it. And so we were tasked with this ability to put in this infrastructure, the regulation, and the ability to have medical marijuana in the state of Arkansas. People of Arkansas voted for that. We are the elected officials, and we have to see that through. But one of the concerns I know that we had and we talked about is this to become a backdoor legalization for marijuana in the state of Arkansas? And I was concerned, I think, my colleagues and many people that we represent had an issue with. So we can show the process for somebody needing medical marijuana. You have cancer, you have some kind of pain management, you have what you think medicinal purposes of medical marijuana are, and the ability to get that in the state. But as far as decriminalizing all people with an ounce or less, I do not see that on the horizon on the Senate side, just because I think that we still have a concern that if we are going to have recreational marijuana in Arkansas, that would be a process and discussion we need to have. And the current climate I see as in the Senate is that it is not in the near future going to happen. So to answer that question specifically, I don't see it happening in the next session. It could change, it could be but I don't want to anticipate that happening.
Thank you.
Senator Flowers?
In terms of the child support enforcement laws being enforced against the non-custodial parent, doesn't have to be a male, but the child support enforcement is a result of federal legislation, number one. And so anytime you're looking at what the rules of the road are in terms of the Office of Child Support Enforcement, you're looking at them working under federal legislation that has been incorporated into our state law. So right now, we don't have a requirement for the non-custodial parent to have legal representation in a civil child support case. But like you said, in the criminal non-support, which I think there is a bottom for criminal prosecution. I haven't seen one unless it was 20,000 or more. That was in a leverage, so could be something less, but I haven't seen any that are less than 20,000. But those are federal laws that we are enforcing in our state as in all the other 49 states. So you might want to, I think, talk to your congressional delegates. But as it relates to I'd like to say something about that marijuana, decriminalization of that. We have reduced the penalty for under an ounce. And that hasn't been that long ago, if I'm right, about that, Chief Whitfield. It's been reduced. So under an ounce, I think you're looking at misdemeanor charges, when it used to be a lot, it was a greater penalty before. So we're making steps. I think it should be decriminalized. I think we're probably going to see a movement for recreational marijuana, just like in other states, Colorado. They're making a fortune off of it. And, you know, people argue both ways that it's having a detrimental effect on communities, but I haven't seen anything to just glaring that makes me think. I mean, it's not like the opioid situation that we're facing here now, heroin. So, you know, it's an herb. It's grown. It's a natural substance. So, you know, people are talking about hemp, and state of Kentucky and the University of Kentucky, they're using hemp for different things. And so I don't know if we're going to be able to get that even in our agricultural, you know, portfolio in Arkansas. But I mean, we're missing opportunities when we can't see what the will of the people is, and to lock up everybody for an ounce of marijuana. I mean, that just doesn't seem sensible to me. So that makes me a liberal. I'm liberal.
If no one else is ready, could I just?
Yes.
Well, we have two votes, and then,
Yeah.
okay,
No,
so,
go ahead.
and then, you, and then.
I didn't see
Okay.
it.
So I have a question about Arkansas Works. And let me tell you my concern, and if someone can address, or you know the process, please share it. My concern is, okay, we've got 60,000 people, approximately 60,000 people that are going to be dropped from the rolls. I understand that DHS is in charge of that process. I understand that they're supposed to be doing an outreach, or maybe not outreach, I guess notification is probably a better word. Now, the last time we went through this process, there was no accountability, and it just was berserk. You know, people were mailed notifications. A lot of people had moved. There was no follow-up. DHS had not hired. People weren't in place to even be prepared to handle the massive load of mail that was returning. So there weren't proper processes in place. It was almost like it hadn't even been considered. And there was no accountability. So my question now, does anyone know the process? Will there be some accountability?
Let's start with Representative Love, and looks like Representative Murdoch wants to.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
My question makes sense?
Representative Love.
He got it.
Okay, Ms. Seals, here's the process. So we're supposed to transition approximately 61,000 people over to the federal side. So they're going to be picked up on they're supposed to be picked up on the federal exchange. And so the process is going to be that for every 4,000 to 5,000 people, we'll do it monthly. Now, I don't know of DHS, because I haven't heard of DHS hiring any new people to actually engage that process. But what the incentive was supposed to be is that since the insurance companies did not want to lose these 61,000 persons, then the insurance company is going to engage in the process of notification. Now, how that's going to play out, I'm not sure, but that is supposed to be the process, that the insurance company engages to kind of undergird what DHS is going to carry out as far as the notification. Now, will that happen? We're going to have to sit back and watch, but that is supposed to be, or that is the process as it is explained by DHS.
Representative Murdoch.
Yeah, real quick, just to follow up, please note that we are actively involved in conversations with DHS now, with Director Gillespie, Kelley Link, former Representative Link, all of those that are making those decisions, that are formulating what's going to happen. As late as today, I was in text session with Kelley about these particular issues to make sure that we get our people connected. Representative Flowers has really been working hard on the community health workers piece of this. She's really has done yeoman duty in trying to put this in place so that people and services can be put together through transition, because we couldn't stop the transition, y'all. But we need to at least lean up on them to make that transition accessible and more easy for us. So we're going to be doing the thank you. That's a great question as well.
And I just want to say, my concern, and I've not worked with this issue, so I honestly didn't know, is we didn't want the people hurt. Because, they slipped through the cracks, and we saw it before. It's the people. It's the people who really hurt. And last time DHS acted like they didn't give a care. So that's why I wanted to have that. Thank you.
Let me speak to the people being hurt, because and this is the major concern that came out of this, out of the 61,000 people, and I kind of discussed this back and forth. I don't want to say I argued with DHS back and forth during committee and during the debate of this bill, is that there is known for a known fact that about 48,000 of those persons were either unable to pay their co-pays or their match, in which that's why DHS was transitioning those persons, is that about 48,000 people were not going to be able to pay their match. And so that's why people are concerned that they're going to lose their coverage. See, when you're on the Arkansas State Exchange, what happens is that Arkansas picks up the tab if you fail to pay your copay. So people don't fall through the cracks. But on the federal exchange side, the federal government will not pick up your copay. So once you fall out of insurance, then what happens is that you have to wait 90 days or up to a year in order to reinstate if you're able to make that payment. And so that's why we can estimate that out of the 61,000 persons, about 48,000 of those people just will not have insurance, because 78% of those persons were not able to pay. It's not that they didn't pay, it's just that it was stated that they were unable to pay. So if they're unable to pay, then why would you do this? And so that's the transition to the federal system, and us stating that about 48,000 people, we can say for a fact, will lose insurance this coming year.
Representative Allen?
Yeah. I think this entire process is going to be somewhat chaotic, because we don't know what's going to come in from Washington, D.C. Whatever they do in Washington, D.C. could really cause us to go into a tailspin, because we don't know what's coming down. And so we can put all this in place, and then with the people in Washington DC, they can erase it overnight, so.
That's a part of waivers act.
Yeah.
These,
Go ahead.
the things that I guess we need to mention to answer your question is that all of these, this 138 to 100, that's 61,000 people, that's a part of the waiver request. So that 1115 waiver request has been made, has not been approved, and I think until, as Representative Allen said, until Washington gets straight on the new healthcare bill, then probably some of those decisions are not gonna be made. So as it is, this is not, Arkansas has said this is what we wanna do, but it has not been approved yet. So those 61 not gone yet, but I do believe though, it's probably gonna happen.
And I want to make a couple of points before we take our next question. And there are three things to consider. And I think the first thing is the point that's been made is you have the federal government that is going to determine really what happens moving forward, no matter what we've done in the legislature so far. But the other thing is you have sort of administrative policy decisions that are made, oftentimes that are budgetary decisions, and then priorities, and then you have outcomes that affect the people and the implementation of those things. And so bear that in mind, that those are two different things, and that when we say DHS, you've got the policymakers and the folks who are concerned about the budget, and then you've got the folks who are working with people. And when when we think about that recertification process that took place, where that went haywire, the folks who don't make a whole lot of money, who are right here in Pine Bluff receiving faxes and trying to process those recertifications from all over the state, that it's a thankless job. So I just want to remind us that a lot of folks who are working in the field, who are social workers, and who are the ones who respond to our kids when they need help, and they've got parents who have issues, and then they're put into foster care. And everybody's not perfect in any arena, but those are some hard-working folks, and we need to think about how we describe and distinguish between administrators and policymakers who make budget decisions and workers.
Well, it sounds like you want me to clarify my statement, and I understand.
No, I just want to make sure that when we talk, we're clear about there are people who make decisions, and there are people who have to implement them, who are subject to those decisions just like we are.
Right, I get it.
Okay. Next question.
Hi, thank you all for serving us. My question is about medicinal marijuana, or a statement. I want to bring something to your attention. Early on in the stages of developing the application for medicinal marijuana, the commissioners decided to use a merit-based system. And with that merit-based system, they decided to use Illinois and Connecticut as the guidelines for that. And so myself and several others have closely monitored that system. One of the things that we lobbied for here recently was for diversity and inclusion for all. Somehow or another, the diversity aspect in the merit system was left out. I like to think that it was a mistake. However, here recently, with the finalization of the application, I want to bring something to the caucus, to the forefront for you all, again, and I kind of wrote it out, cheat sheet. The commissioners said they would use the Economic Development Commission's data from Arkansas and send it to tier map and a definition for diversity. In 6A of the application, they used the tier ranking counties map, but in 6B, someone maybe by mistake changed the Economic Development Commission minority diversity definition of veterans. Ownership in the cultivation and dispensary by veterans, we recommend that Schedule B is amended to state a service-disabled veteran as designated by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs in accordance with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission's office. Basically what I'm saying is, now that we have this application and it's getting ready to go into where it's in the finalization where they're getting ready to release these applications, they left out a very, very important part of the merit system again. And whereas I was fighting for minorities, for diversity and inclusion, we wouldn't dare forget those who have fought for this country. And those are our disabled veterans, or veterans in aspect. And the application that is going forward, they're not included. And so we want it to be stated in there, in the application. And again, I'll state that again, it's in 6A and 6B of the application, that it needs to state that disabled veteran as described by the United States as a whole.
Do you mind sending it?
Yeah, is that something that you could please email to me? I know you have my email address.
Yes, I will, and I would like to email it to you all. She'll send it to her. She'll send it, yes. I'll get it to her. Okay. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, it's kind of hard already for minorities in this. You can be on we ask for equality, but even with the even playing field, we're well aware that if you have an even playing field, that you think that everything will go accordingly. But if you have the economic development in one group, you don't have it in the other, then you see where this person is able to advance more than the others. So I just want that the people that the commission has set aside the merit points for to receive those merit points. So I just wanted to bring that to you all's attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Caldwell.
I had a question for you. Is it the application or is that the rules that have been promulgated?
Those are the rules, but the part those are the rules. They're the rules and the regulations. But within the rules and the regulations, you also have, that is a part of course, it's a part of the application. What I'm referring to is, in Illinois and Connecticut, which the commissioners chose to pattern our program after, they use a merit-based system to try to include diversity and inclusiveness of all. However, we're kind of fighting down here because in the merit system that they first proposed to us, it included the veterans, it included the minority, and we know that things have been amended now where it's no longer just the minority, black business owner or whatever, it now includes the white female and so on and so forth. So, with that being said, let's at least do due diligence to the application, to the merit-based system, and make sure that we include our veterans as well.
Thank you. And so we have a few more minutes. We'll have a question from Mr. Foster, Chief Whitfield, and Mr. Aaron. Anybody else? Okay, that's how we'll close it out. Mr. Foster.
Good evening. It's good to see you guys here this evening. My question is one I've been trying to get answered for some years now. It goes back to the lottery scholarship program. The people of this state voted for that, passed, and the language in there states that those funds are to be spent on scholarships and grants. As we speak today, not one dime has been put into a grant. Now, all of the funding so far has gone to the scholarship side. We used to have something called Academic Challenge before that came along. Once that came along and the lottery passed, all that changed. And it became merit-based and the standards to get that money went up. And what I'm saying to you is everybody's not going to qualify to get lottery monies. But if the grant program was working the way that it was designed to and what the people of this state voted on, that would happen. No one has addressed that yet. And I've talked to some people about that. I've talked to some legislators about that. And we just can't seem to get any movement on that at all. And I'm saying is that a prime example would be if it's a grant program, this university could probably benefit from that because of the fact that there's some kids that would probably love to go to college right here, but they're not going to be able to, they don't have the money. If we had a grant program that would help in that effort. And I'm saying the people voted for that to happen, and no one is enforcing that. That needs to change, and I'm hoping that the Caucus could look into that and get some movement on it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if I could ask you, Senator Elliott, to touch on that.
Well, it's complicated by, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and indeed, that is what the people voted on. And I brought this up with our education committees and just actually got nowhere with it. And now is complicated by we have bought into a lottery system that is supposed to guarantee students a certain amount every year, which is just, I mean, that's like a 180 from what a lottery is. A lottery, when y'all buy a lottery ticket, don't you might win Sunday night? Or whatever that was? I did. A lottery is no guarantee. And so the way we have bought into it now, where when Representative Bill applies, he's going to get the $1,000 or $2,000 as opposed to you get what's available. And having now bought into building the lottery on something that's a guarantee makes it even harder now for us to get grant into it. So I just have to say straight up, you're gonna have to change, we've got to change some people in the legislature to probably ever get that changed. And I mean that, and I'm not being flippant about it, because I totally agree with you. That's in the law, we ought to be doing it. But I can't get anywhere with it, and I think we have totally bastardized the entire lottery scholarship that the people voted on. There's just no question about it. And because we know the way that the way the scholarships are now the eligibility form is on its face discriminatory. And I'm not saying that, just be saying it. I went back and got 5 years of data and presented it to the education committee, to present it to people on the Senate floor, that this is what the outcome is, and this is what 5 years of data show us, and we still did it. So I'm only telling you that to help you understand what we're up against and trying to come to some grant. Doesn't mean that I don't put it on the table and try to get it done, and we'll continue to do so. Because it is something that, because grants would, for example, it might not even be, it could be grants of all kinds. Because it could be a grant to help students get prepared for, taking the ACT or the SAT or the PSAT. It could be those kind of things. Or it could be grants, because I think we probably put enough money into getting kids prepared to take a test. I think we need to be putting more money into making sure they get educated as opposed to, just being prepared to take a test. So it could be grants, for example, to help students if you have not done well on the ACT or the SAT. Many colleges are now going to on-campus assistance to students so that you don't spend your time in remedial classes. Suppose we had a grant, for example, right here at UAPB. You didn't make 19 on the ACT, but there are people all over the world who are doing great who didn't make 19 on the ACT. So what a lot of colleges are going to is we hire somebody to do what we call intrusive counseling for that student, and you go right on with your education. You don't spend money and time on remediation. You have a grant to do things like that. So it's not just about putting money in a student's pocket. It could be, a grant to ensure success, which we could probably do a whole lot more with, as opposed to, money that's going to go to students. But I feel you, I hear you, but we need we're going to change some minds and hearts on the education committee, because that's where it starts. And people keep bringing it up.
That's what it does.
Thank you for your question. If we go back and we look at the origin of the lottery, when we first passed that legislation, the intent, it was Bill Holden and David Rainey at the time that was leading the fight. And they were fighting for scholarships for poor kids. And the requirement was that you have to have a C.
A 2.0.
That's all you need was a 2.0 to get the scholarship. But as this thing unfolded, they kept raising the standards. So the kids that really need the money is not getting the money. So what we have to do now is go back to the drawing board, and it's gonna be an uphill challenge for us to get this done. But I really think that there's gonna have to be some lawsuits filed because we keep changing it. And if you look at it now, I think they're requiring now, it's like a 21 or 22.
It's still 19.
19?
It's still 19.
But it's a grade point average.
Let me just say, it's 19, but what really hurts is it used to be 19 or 2.5. The 2.5 is now gone, that's the problem.
Yeah, but if you look at the average African-American ACT test, it's a 16. So we're not qualified for it. So the ones that's playing the lottery in hopes that their kids can get a lottery scholarship, it's not happening. So we need to go back to the drawing board and see how can we reverse this thing and make this scholarship work for the ones that truly need it. The ones that get the scholarship, most of them don't need it. If you look at where the money is going, it's not going in the African American community. It's going in other parts of the state. In other parts of the state, they're not playing the lottery. The lottery is being played in the second congressional district, the first, and the fourth. That's what the money is, but that's what the lottery is being played. But the money is going to the third.
Thank you. Chief Whitfield?
Thank you. I'll make it brief. When this first started, the president of the NAACP of this city stood before you all and said something about defining the difference between abuse and discipline. I'm standing here now as chief of police asking the same question. Let me tell you why. I think it's very important when it comes to fighting crime. I think some things that occurred years ago, people may say it's not good for us, but some things are. Let me do it very quickly. If you look at when we was young, a boy and girl, they had prayer in school. They took it out, but now they figured out a way that if you meet a certain qualification, you can bring a gun to school. Think about it. Now, when we was a boy and a little girl, marijuana was illegal all across. Now they have figured out a way to make marijuana legal. I'm not complaining about it, that people voted on it, but they took it and made it legal. I'm saying to you all, that to help fight crime, a man needs to be able to control his home. As a police officer, if this man grabbed his son by the arm because he looked at his mama wrong and he leaves the mark there, the law says, I've got to take him to jail. Something is wrong with that picture. And until we define the difference, it may make mothers against drunk drivers think they got this group, it may make them mad, but to help the family, somebody has to dig in deep and find a way to tell men they can be a man at their home. And this is abuse, and this is discipline. That's my question to you. Would you at least commit tonight to look at it if you can't answer it tonight? Thank you.
I have a question. I have a question about that because I frankly, flat out don't know how to do that. I hear you. So rather than my sitting here and telling you I will look at it, I would need you to look at it with me more deeply to understand what you're asking of us. I understand that you want the difference, but I look at it and I can see it's really complicated to do so. And that's why I don't want to just try to say we could just figure that out by ourselves, because I don't know that I would know how to do that. And are we, in this case, since that is a problem, would we look further, for example, to look at how do we teach parents some different ways of dealing with their kids? Might that be a part of what we're talking about as well? Because if we go down the road of just saying we're going to define one different from the other and not give parents other alternatives about how they can work with their kids, that it might not come to that. I think that would be important. So I think so your thoughts about that? That's why I'm putting
I think to some level, they call it timeout. But some people would say, let's just put them in timeout.
Well, just to be clear, I'm not talking about
Okay,
timeout.
I thought that, I was saying, okay.
Just to be clear.
But I think that does a good, that's another, it's gonna take more than just one way to solve it.
Right.
And then bringing that to the table would help the parents. But I think we have to relax the law of saying, just because you grab your son, give me a young man, you can't do this, and you leave a mark there, we have to say, that's not abuse.
And I need to ask you one more question,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
because I listened to words very carefully as a woman.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you talking also too if I grab you?
Yes, ma'am.
If it's me?
Yes, ma'am.
His mama?
When I just said something from a man, he's the mama guy.
All right, I just want to be clear.
Okay,
Because
that's a
listen,
good point.
yeah, because a lot of these homes.
It's
It's mama.
Right.
All right, I hear you. Thank you.
Just like this.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification.
And finally, Mr. Aaron.
This is a good place, but right after the chief talks about discretion of law, and it goes back to marijuana and ounce of lesson. I'm a former narcotics officer, and many times on the street when police officers pull over an individual, if they have an ounce or just a couple of joints or a small amount, personal use, the police officer has the discretion to take that marijuana, let it blow in the wind, right? The issue is that in being discretionary, it is sometimes based on implicit or explicit biases. For example, white officers may tend to dump out personal use weed of white teenagers or white adults. In contrast, every time an African American is arrested with a joint, is getting charged. The senator mentioned a misdemeanor amount. A charge is a charge, it never goes away. And so it follows you for your entire life. Even if your record is expunged or sealed, law enforcement and certain state agencies and employees, employers have access to those records. It just simply says expunged or sealed. And so we have to level the playing field, just as Ivan was talking about, to define the laws, to remove some of the discretions that law enforcement officers have. And if we decriminalize an ounce of weed or less, then we can remove that discretion, and now when we have a black child stop by a police officer, the automatic response is to dump it out, slap him on the wrist, and leave him home. And the same response would be for a white child, and so it's a matter of leveling the playing field. And in response to child support, when those people go to jail, the non-custodial parent, they don't go to federal jail. They go to a state or the county jail. And so when we talk about federal laws and federal regulations that govern child support, I went to court with a non-custodial parent. He hadn't paid, he hadn't had a job, he also had a wife and children that lived in the home with him, and then hadn't paid for his child that was not part of his immediate family. And the judge, in that session, sentenced him to 6 months in jail on the spot. No legal representation, no nothing, go to jail. And so these people ought to be provided with public defenders to protect them in situations where they are facing criminal action just as well as they protect a non-custodial parent. And also in regards to reviewing payments. Non-custodial parents are automatically reviewed if there's, let's say I'm a non-custodial, I started making more money, they automatically review me, my payments go up. Let's say my payments go down. I've got to go to court now, I've got to find an attorney, I've got to pay for an attorney, and go to court to have an attorney to file to have the payments reduced. I'm talking about making things equal. Parents should be responsible for taking care of their children. I take care of mine, love them to death, even grandkids. But the reality is that there are some people that are unable to do that, and they need equal representation. And so if the state jail is going to lock them up for not paying child support, then the state ought to be providing them with legal defense just to lighten their sentence, because you can't pay no money if you're in jail. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, and I will say that we probably have had right here in this meeting and right here on camera some good legislation maybe being born through discussion that could bear out over the next, over this interim. And so I want to encourage all of you to please grab directories, please grab the summaries, please use us in terms of the constituency services needs. Please like our Facebook page. If you can come to some of our future meetings in other areas of the state, please join us. And we want to thank you very much for coming out tonight. And we probably should have told you or said that the food could be available at the beginning, but we got started talking and fellowshipping as soon as folks walked in. So there are some refreshments available for you to take part in, and we can be here for a few more minutes to fellowship with you. We'd like to thank Chancellor Alexander, who is an awesome partner of the caucus and of this delegation, those of us who are hosting tonight. This is not our first time at this rodeo, and this is not our first time conducting this rodeo at UAPB, and we look forward to future opportunities to engaging with the public. UAPB-TV is a wonderful tool for us to be able to do that, so those who couldn't be here tonight can be here at home maybe tomorrow night or next week. So thank you again very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank y'all for coming out.